Battle of Wilson's Creek, Missouri's fight for its soul. This is the story of the Battle of Wilson's Creek, a pivotal clash in the early days of the American Civil War. To understand how we got to the gunfire on August 10, 1861, we must journey back into the tangled web of Missouri politics and its cast of characters. Missouri wasn't just a state. It was the epicenter of a national identity crisis. In 1821, the Missouri Compromise admitted it as a slave state, balancing the precarious scales of sectional power. But balance was an illusion. Missouri's cities buzzed with abolitionist fervor thanks to waves of German and Irish immigrants, while its southern farms clung to the institution of slavery like a drowning man to a raft. By 1861, Missouri's residents were as split as their loyalties. The state's leaders were caught in a tug-of-war between Union and Confederate sympathies, each side eyeing the mighty Mississippi River, which bisected Missouri, as a strategic prize. The state convention in February of that year overwhelmingly rejected secession, choosing neutrality instead. However, in Missouri, neutrality was about as effective as building a dam out of twigs. It looked good on paper, but crumbled under pressure. This drama wouldn't be complete without its colorful cast of characters. Governor Claiborne Fox Jackson, the scheming Southern sympathizer. Born in 1806 in Kentucky, Claiborne Fox Jackson was the classic archetype of a sly politician. Raised on tales of Southern pride and genteel traditions, Jackson built a life that combined charm with duplicity. As a young man, he dabbled in mercantile ventures that collapsed faster than a house of cards, leaving him with a reputation for ambition, but little to show for it. Jackson eventually found his true calling in politics, where he rose through Missouri's Democratic ranks. A master of backroom deals and half-truths, he portrayed himself as a moderate while harboring deep Confederate sympathies. His greatest flaw? Overconfidence. Jackson believed his schemes to align Missouri with the South were so subtle they'd go unnoticed, a notion Nathaniel Lyon would quickly disabuse him of. Born in 1818 on a Connecticut farm, Nathaniel Lyon grew up with the iron will of a Puritan preacher and the tact of a runaway bull. The youngest of 7 children, Lyon's early years were shaped by hard labor and an uncompromising moral code. A graduate of West Point, Lyon's career had been an uneasy mix of brilliance and controversy. He fought with distinction in the Mexican-American War, but developed a reputation for being abrasive, stubborn, and dangerously single-minded. By the time the Civil War erupted, Lyon had become a staunch abolitionist, willing to tear Missouri apart if it meant keeping it in the Union. Frank Blair Jr. was born in 1821 into a prominent Kentucky family that had migrated to Missouri. With fiery red hair and an even hotter temper, Blair followed in his father's footsteps as a lawyer and politician. He was fiercely Unionist and equally adept at stirring the pot. Blair's greatest strength? His ability to galvanize support for the Union cause. His greatest weakness? A tendency to alienate even his allies with his relentless ambition and sharp tongue. Blair and Lyon were unlikely allies, but their shared mission to keep Missouri in the Union forged a powerful partnership. Together, they became Jackson's worst nightmare. The collision course began in May 1861, when Lyon took over command of federal forces in Missouri. Its governor, Claiborne Fox Jackson, was holding the match. Elected on a platform of neutrality, Jackson's real agenda was as secretive as a poker hand filled with aces. While publicly playing the role of peacekeeper, Jackson was privately scheming to hand Missouri over to the Confederacy, a prize as glittering as a diamond for the Southern cause. Jackson began back-channel communications with Confederate President Jefferson Davis, laying out a bold plan: seize the federal armory in St. Louis, arm his militia, and deliver Missouri to the Confederacy on a silver platter. Why St. Louis? Simple. It was the key to the Mississippi River and a trove of federal weaponry that could shift the balance of power. To achieve this, Jackson began raising a state militia, ostensibly to protect Missouri's neutrality, but in reality it was a wolf in sheep's clothing, filled with Confederate sympathizers ready to pounce. Jackson's militia encamped around St. Louis, secretly training and awaiting heavy artillery from the Confederacy. But unbeknownst to him, Union Captain Nathaniel Lyon was no ordinary soldier. A fiery abolitionist and tactical genius, Lyon didn't trust Jackson as far as he could throw him. Disguised as a farm woman, petticoats and all, Lyon infiltrated the militia's camp, a scene straight out of a Shakespearean comedy. What he discovered was enough to make his blood boil. Confederates supplied artillery and a plan to storm the arsenal. On May 10th, Lyon struck. Leading a mixed force of pro-Union militia and regular troops, he surrounded the camp, forcing its surrender. But as the disarmed prisoners were marched through the streets, a Confederate sympathizing mob gathered, hurling insults and objects. Tensions snapped like an overstretched bowstring when shots rang out. Whether from a drunkard or nervous soldiers is debated to this day. The chaos left 28 civilians dead and 75 wounded. Lyon had saved the arsenal but set Missouri ablaze with anger. In the aftermath, Missouri's legislature passed the military bill, reorganizing the militia into the Missouri State Guard under former Governor Sterling Price, a man whose name carried weight but whose loyalties were firmly with the Confederacy. Jackson, now with unchecked power, openly allowed Confederate recruitment and turned a blind eye to violence against Union supporters. Lyon, meanwhile, was promoted to Brigadier General and prepared for the inevitable clash. After being ousted as governor, Jackson convinced Confederate General Benjamin McCulloch, a grizzled veteran with a knack for bold moves, to invade Missouri. McCulloch's mixed force of Confederate, Arkansas, and Missouri troops, 12,000 strong, encamped near Springfield. Facing them was Lyon, with just 5,400 troops. Outnumbered and outgunned, Lyon planned a desperate surprise attack along Wilson's Creek, a serene stream about to be drenched in blood. At dawn on August 10th, Lyon's men attacked. The Confederate camp was caught completely off guard, their canceled plans for a previous night's assault leaving them unprepared. Lyon seized the high ground of Bloody Hill, but Confederate artillery slowed his advance, giving Sterling Price time to rally his militia. On the flank, Colonel Franz Sigel's force initially succeeded, but a case of mistaken identity proved disastrous. Sigel mistook advancing Confederates in gray for friendly Iowans. His hesitation cost him dearly as his flank collapsed in a hail of gunfire. On Bloody Hill, Lyon fought valiantly, wounded twice yet refusing to yield. Leading a counterattack, he was struck fatally through the heart, becoming the first Union general killed in the Civil War. With their leader gone and ammunition running low, the Union forces under Major Samuel Sturgis retreated after 6.5 hours of brutal combat. Though the Confederates held the field, their victory was Pyrrhic. Short on supplies and wary of their militia's readiness, they failed to pursue Lyon's retreat to Rolla. The battle underscored a harsh reality. This war would not be won quickly or easily. Missouri, though ceded to the Confederacy temporarily, would remain a contested battleground. Jackson's efforts culminated in an ordinance of secession passed by a rump government, recognized by the Confederacy, but not by most Missourians. Missouri became the 12th star on the Confederate flag, but Jackson's dream was short-lived. He died of pneumonia in 1862, leaving Missouri embroiled in a brutal guerrilla war. Bushwhackers like William Quantrill and Bloody Bill Anderson turned the state into a nightmare of raids and reprisals. By war's end, Missouri had witnessed over 1,200 engagements, a tragic testament to its fractured loyalties. Missouri's story is one of divided hearts and chaotic loyalties. It was not merely a conflict between North and South, but a civil war within a civil war. From Lyon's daring disguise to the blood-soaked fields of Wilson's Creek, Missouri's battles were as complex as they were consequential. And as the cannons fell silent, the scars of its war within a war would remain etched into its soul for generations. The Confederates claimed victory at Wilson's Creek, but it was a costly win. The battle underscored the brutality of the war and shattered any illusions of a quick conflict. For Missouri, the battle deepened the divide between Unionists and Confederates, setting the stage for years of guerrilla warfare. Lyon's death turned him into a Union martyr, galvanizing support for the Northern cause. Jackson's Confederate dreams, however, were short-lived. Union forces soon regained control of most of Missouri. The Battle of Wilson's Creek was more than a clash of armies. It was a collision of ideologies, egos, and ambitions. Missouri, torn apart by its divided loyalties, became a microcosm of the Civil War itself. As the dust settled, one thing was clear. This war would be longer, bloodier, and messier than anyone had dared imagine. And so,